This is my third video here on Hedera and HBAR. If you guys haven't seen the first two, I'll post the links in the description. Please check them out. The first video covers literally, it's an intro to Hedera and HBAR, and it covers everything from the governing council to the decentralization aspect. And that's kind of where I'd start as a beginner. The second video talks about updates from that video. And then this third video is going to be a lot shorter. Decided to go ahead and try to make more frequent updates. So my last video was made about 2 weeks ago. This video is going to cover all the developments, the major developments that I found with Hedera and HBAR over the last 2 weeks. And the idea is to make these videos every week or every other week and kind of have more regular updates on Hedera so you guys can find out everything that there is to know and every new development on Hedera and HBAR that's occurred over the last couple of weeks in a quick, easy to view format here like these videos. So guys, I hope you guys do enjoy this video. We're going to jump right into it. I think this one's going to be considerably shorter than the last. So without further ado, guys, let's jump right into it. All right, guys, so the first topic that I'm going to talk about is Eftpos, which is the Australian Governing Council member that has been using Hedera for, I believe, over a year now. And they were trialing micropayments using Hedera Hashgraph. And so this first video kind of talks about a little bit about that, a little bit about what they're looking to do with Hedera, and it talks about the micropayments as well as some other things that they've been looking to build on Hedera. I'm going to go ahead and play a few short clips. These are going to be about a minute to 2 minutes long, and there's a couple of them in this video that I want to focus on. So let's just go ahead and jump right to it, guys.
Yeah, so Eftpos is Australia's national debit card infrastructure and operator. It's been around in various forms for about 30 years. And it's pretty ubiquitous in Australia. Every Australian knows Eftpos. They all have a relationship with it. They make their payments with their debit cards in stores and now online. And it's a pretty trusted brand. The Australians don't really know what Eftpos is. They just know it's there and they trust it, and it's it's part of their daily life. There are billions of dollars of value going across the Eftpos payment rails, every year.
So guys, that was just a little intro to Eftpos, basically the biggest debit card company in Australia, and I believe most debit cards in Australia are going through Eftpos. So just kind of gives you an idea of the scale of this massive company. We talked about them earlier in my earlier videos. They're one of the governing council members. So that was just a very brief intro. Let's move on. And over here, Rob Allen's going to talk about the micropayments use case that they've been experimenting with on Hedera, as well as some other things that were recently announced that haven't been discussed in the past. So let's go ahead and move on to that clip there.
It was really interesting to me to look at ways that we could do sub-cent payments, because payments today cost the infrastructure 10 cents, 20, 30, up to dollars to make, just in terms of unit costs of making payments and transferring value. So entire business models are being missed out on because the unit cost is so high. When you can push a unit cost of a transaction to 1/100 of a cent, then all sorts of other things start appearing, in terms of removal of the added layer of friction that has grown up around it, subscription services and ads and all the other stuff that kind of gets in the way of a really good user experience.
Guys, real quick, a note on that. So basically what he's talking about is that today, when you're trying to make a payment or trying to make a transaction, the costs per transaction are anywhere from, as he said, 10 cents, 20 cents to even dollars per transaction. And this makes things less efficient and difficult to use. And while he was saying that, a perfect example came to mind. And I think this is one that probably a lot of people can relate to. So you walk into a small business, and at least I've experienced this quite a few times, but you'll walk into a small business and you'll go to pay for whatever you bought. And on the register close to the checkout stand, it'll say something like credit cards or debit cards, like minimum $5 payment for a credit card or debit card transaction. And again, this is mainly in like smaller mom and pop retailer locations. And the reason that they say that is because these credit card processing companies charge a flat fee per transaction that could be anywhere from 30 to 45 cents or higher. So imagine you're checking out and you're buying a candy bar for $1 from this vendor, and you're paying with a credit card. So it costs you $1, but the merchant, whoever's accepting the payment, it might cost him 30 to 40 cents just to process that transaction, which means that he's getting 60 cents on the dollar for that bar of candy that you're buying. And who knows, maybe his cost is 65 to 70 cents, which means he's going to lose money on the transaction. And this is the reason why oftentimes they'll have that minimum purchase required for credit cards. So this is kind of what he's talking about. That's the additional friction in terms of payments. Right now, making a transaction, you're paying high costs to do these transactions using traditional credit card providers. That's kind of one example that came to mind when he was discussing this. But let's go ahead and continue on here.
So we tested micropayments, and I still think micropayments is the number one use case for us. Particularly interested in things like Internet of Things. So all of our devices in the future, the billions of devices that are going to be in the world, the web of devices that we will have around us, all kind of with delegated authority from our digital identity, we'll be able to make tiny transactions between them. My Fitbit will be paying your fridge for whatever it might be. I don't know, but I like the use case of us all being ferried around in autonomous vehicles, and my autonomous vehicle pays your autonomous vehicle a cent to move out of the way so that I can all in kind of this delegated threshold-based way. So there are use cases that we haven't really thought of, but we focused on we focused on the low-hanging fruit for the proof of concept, and that was the paywall killer, the subscription service, the pay per page, as the page turns, the author earns, which isn't my phrase. It's I think it's out.
So guys, really interesting here. So he's talking about microtransactions through things like autonomous, or through things like vehicles and stuff like that. And another, again, this comes to mind as well. And I was just thinking about, how many ways that this technology can be used. But going to when I'm traveling, sometimes I go across a toll bridge, and you have to pay a toll to get through, right? And the toll fee could be anywhere from $5 to $6, or it could be more. But the point being is that it kind of causes a bottleneck in traffic, especially when you go down to parts of the Bay Area, San Francisco. Anyone who's traveled there knows that getting from going across those toll bridges, there's often, depending on what time of the day you go, a big bottleneck that slows traffic down. You're stuck sitting in traffic for an hour because of this toll. Essentially, it's an area where before going across a bridge, you stop. Every car has to actually stop, pay the guy in the toll booth a fee, $5 to $6. He then opens the gate, and then you can go ahead and drive through. And so there are certain technologies already that allow you to sort of bypass this, something called Fast Track that allows you to pay a monthly fee, and you get a little thing that you stick in your dashboard, and then you just drive through without having to stop. But something like this kind of, I would think, is similar to that, in that now everyone has, ideally, a fast track kind of machine inherently built into their vehicle, where their vehicle can automatically pay this fee, this toll booth fee, as it passes through, without having to have this separate device, added onto the vehicle. That's kind of something that comes to mind. Another idea: you're going through a drive-through, and now you don't need your wallet to pay for your fast food. You just go through the drive-through. Your wallet is actually ingrained into your vehicle, and as you pass through the drive-through, it goes ahead and pays for your food. You just grab it from the guy who's inside, and you move on. So that's just off the top of my head, simple examples of ways that I think that this type of technology could be used and integrated into our vehicles today. And that's kind of what he's referring to, is there's so many ways that we can integrate micropayments into our vehicles. He gave a few examples there as well, but those are just a couple of examples that came through in my mind. Let's go ahead and move on to the last part of this video that I want to show you guys. It's about a 40-second clip here.
In fact, when we were doing the micropayments proof of concept, we worked with an identity wallet provider called Miko. And Miko are also a Hedera-related ecosystem player. So we're drawing together all these threads, and they did a great job providing an identity wallet which we could put payments into. And on our identity projects, we're looking at providing verifiable credentials into other use cases. So I'm very keen to support the ecosystem to grow, because then you get network effect.
Right.
And I really believe in the future there'll be, pretty much every business in the world will be operating on Hedera. They just won't know.
All right, guys. So that's it for this video. Super exciting stuff. You can see obviously how confident he was there about Hedera and its capabilities in the future. He was talking about a partner that they're working with that is using Hedera Hashgraph for digital identification and digital IDs, and how that technology could pair up with what these guys are doing to enable these microtransactions, these micropayments. So let's go ahead and move on to the next article. All right, guys, so this is the next topic of interest here for this video. We have talked about Suku before. I talked about them in my prior videos, but this is an interesting development, something new that they're planning on doing that's just been announced, and I think it's quite interesting. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So digital-only sneakers, they're coming soon to the Infinite App's new NFT marketplace. We know that NFTs right now are all the hype. I do think that at this initial stage, I mean, things are getting crazy with NFTs. I do think they're here to stay. I do see NFTs as being a long-term market that's going to thrive in the same way that classic works of art and collectibles thrive in today's environment. But I do think that this use case and this market is something that's very real. We may be in a speculative bubble right now, as all kinds of crazy NFTs are being created and selling for insane values, but I do think that in the long term, this is a marketplace that's only going to grow and that's going to thrive down the road. So let's take a look at what these guys are doing here. Suku, we talked about in my prior videos that they've created an app called Infinite, right? Which aims to make a splash with an innovative method for authenticating sneakers that pairs physical shoes with digital tokens backed by crypto technology. We talked about that again in my prior videos. Eventually, however, Infinite wants to expand to offering NFT sneakers that are digital only and not tied to a tangible item at all. So initially, Suku, their use case was creating authentication for sneakers, right, to verify the authenticity of sneakers, because the knockoff sneaker market is a multi-billion-dollar market right now, and it's difficult to tell. They've gotten so good, it's difficult to tell whether a pair of sneakers that you may be buying online is actually authentic or whether it's a knockoff. And so this is one of the use cases that Suku has been targeting, and they're using NFTs, installing chips inside the toe of a shoe of these sneakers that'll have a digital ID that'll basically track where they were bought from and where they were sold to make sure that you can verify that you're getting authentic shoes. So this article is about eventually they're planning on offering digital-only sneakers as NFTs that are not actually tied to a physical pair like they currently do. So right here, this was a tweet. The Get Infinite app from blockchain startup Suku is using Hedera NFT technology to power sneaker authentication via NFC tags from Avery Dennison, another one of the governing council members. Now it's launching a marketplace to buy and sell purely digital kicks. All right. So again, while sneakers are the focus for now, Infinite has its eyes on expansion to other collectible categories like art, cars, and other assets, which would be all linked to NFTs on a new marketplace called Infinite Digital. So I guess for their digital NFTs, they're going to be releasing or launching a marketplace called Infinite Digital, which is going to focus on all digital NFTs. And it says here that they're starting off with digital sneakers, but they could go on to collectible arts, cars, and other assets. In other words, other types of NFTs, digital NFTs, they're basically creating one massive market for that, starting with those digital sneakers. So again, I mentioned how for me, this idea of sneakers that you'd wear in-game is kind of a foreign concept. It's not something that I've experienced myself, but there's a very, very big example that I could talk about, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. That kind of gives you guys, those who aren't familiar with video games like myself, an idea of how big this market really is and how significant it really is. Because initially when I read this, like digital sneakers, who's going to buy digital sneakers to wear in a game, right? But there's a very, very big and very recognizable game that has done this at a scale that many others haven't, that I'm sure many of my viewers are going to relate to as well. Let's talk about that and how they've actually done this in a very, very big way. So guys, what I'm talking about is Fortnite. Now, many of you guys are probably familiar with Fortnite. Some of the older generations may not be so familiar with it. I am familiar with it. I have friends that have played it. I personally haven't played the game, but it has been insanely, insanely successful. And they generate most of their revenue from this type of digital clothing or digital items that you can purchase in-game. So Fortnite is a free-to-play video game, all right? It was created in 2017, and since then it's become insanely popular. In 2019, Fortnite brought in revenues of $1.8 billion. While most console releases make money from selling a hard copy or digital version of the game itself, Fortnite's revenue comes entirely from microtransactions, okay? How does Fortnite make money? Well, most console releases make money from selling a hard copy or digital version of the game itself. Fortnite's revenue comes from microtransactions. The monetization occurs when the player wants to acquire additions, dubbed costumes and skins, which they have to purchase. So the idea being that you have this in-game character when you're playing the game, and you can actually purchase additional costumes or clothing for this character, which they call skins, and you can wear those in the game. And it's a way to kind of show off to other players. So these things can be purchased, and this is kind of going back to what Suku's doing. They're creating these digital sneakers that can be purchased in-game and worn on the battlefield, for example. So you could show off your new Nikes, your new digital Nikes in-game to your friends. And I guess it's something that is actually very appealing to these players because, again, this is how Fortnite makes a lot of their money. Again, $1.8 billion in revenues in 2019. A lot of it came from these types of microtransactions. So these are Fortnite usage and revenue statistics from 2020. A very good article, has a lot of content. I'm going to skip down to the bottom where I've highlighted some important aspects to kind of give us an idea of the magnitude of this type of a market. All right, so this talks about Fortnite spending. All right, while in-game purchases are mostly limited to non-essential cosmetic items such as digital clothing or digital sneakers, a survey carried out by Lend EDU found that close to 77% of Fortnite players invested in V-Bucks, which is the digital currency that Fortnite uses to purchase these items, spending a not insignificant average of $102, up from $85 in 2018. I'm assuming that's $102 per year. Okay. Now, Fortnite makes its revenue through two things. They have something called a Battle Pass, which is kind of like a subscription service that gets you some additional perks when playing the game. The game is free to play, but you can purchase the Battle Pass to get access to some additional perks and stuff. And I believe that's, I want to say, and don't quote me on this, but I want to say around $10 a quarter in cost. All right. So if the average player, which is 77% of Fortnite players, are spending $102 per year, that means that they're not just spending money on this battle pass, but they're also spending money on these digital skins and these digital costume items. For just over a third of these, this was the first game on which they had ever made in-app purchases. All right, so that tells us that this trend of making in-app purchases is growing. Right, in this case, a third of these 77% of players invested in these digital skins for the first time. And then this kind of breaks down the expenditures, right? Outfits on characters, 50, looks like 50, I'm assuming this is US dollars. So $50 were spent on average on these types of digital costumes for characters. So when Suku says that they're targeting or that they're going to be creating a digital marketplace for digital sneakers, initially I didn't quite get it. After looking at the way that Fortnite has made their money and the amount of money that they have made, I can see that this may actually be a very big niche market that's actually growing significantly, and that will probably continue to grow over the years to come. And I can see the value in what Suku is trying to do, and it makes sense to me. And again, they plan on starting off with digital sneakers, but again, expanding into various other forms of digital NFTs. So excellent and very interesting article there on Suku. Let's continue on to the next topic. All right, guys, the next topic is on a company called GoMint, and GoMint was actually part of the Hedera hackathon. And they are a NFT platform which allows you to tokenize NFTs, or allows you to create NFTs on Hedera Hashgraph. And this is an interview done with them. I think it's very interesting. We're going to play a couple of clips from this interview. I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one here. And in this initial clip, one of the leads on GoMint is going to actually talk about what GoMint is. We're going to start off with that here.
Background on the company and what you guys are aiming to achieve.
Absolutely. So GoMint is a platform that is used to tokenize and monetize almost any digital asset using HTS. We're planning a full marketplace for users to showcase and sell their NFTs. There's been a lot of interest in the NFT portion of our mission at the moment. So we're planning an amazing curated launch, which is going to be basically a proof of concept launch. That's going to be the first week of May. And that's basically the brief history of what GoMint is. I could tell you about.
All right, guys. So again, this is a new NFT platform on Hedera. I believe there's probably a few that are being built right now on Hedera, but this is one of the first ones that comes to mind. Again, they were in the hackathon, and so this is kind of gone off from where they started at the hackathon when they submitted their project, and it's kind of taken off from there. Let's go ahead and move on to another part of this video.
All right. And, we have been hearing a lot about NFTs. I think that's, it's the buzziest of buzzwords right now. But we're also hearing from artists and other creators who have concerns about the environmental impact and the footprint of NFTs. So can you talk a little bit about that and about GoMint's approach to that?
Yeah, sure. So I think when it comes to the green stuff, it really comes down to how the platform achieves consensus, whether there's heavy processing power needed to run a proof of work blockchain such as Ethereum, or proof of stake like Hedera, where it takes considerably less energy to run nodes required to maintain that consensus. I was reading an article the other day actually that said the estimated one NFT on Ethereum has a carbon footprint of about 210 kilograms of CO2, which is the equivalent to which is the equivalent to 1 month's consumption of electricity for one person. So I think it's an important consideration when doing NFTs, and Hedera is considerably less. So if you want to be green, you should go with Hedera, and then if you're going to go with Hedera, might as well go with GoMint.
So guys, that was just a quick little talk about how efficient really Hedera is compared to some of these other networks that are creating NFTs. We're going to skip forward to the last little clip of this video that I want to show you guys. We're going to talk a little bit more about the efficiencies of Hedera.
Great. And anything else that I didn't ask that you'd love for the community at large to know?
I guess I would just like them to know that it is cheaper to mint on Hedera than it is on other platforms where there's gas fees of $50 to $80, whereas on Hedera it's that $1 fixed fee, which is amazing. So it makes it easier to tokenize low value assets where on other platforms it might not be possible. And our launch first week of May, have some exciting things there. You guys at Hedera gave us some NFTs for a giveaway, so I'll let this serve as that announcement.
All right,
guys, so that was it from GoMint. Kind of the key that he was trying to make, there's if you're trying to tokenize, a low value item that costs you maybe 10, 20 bucks, or a low value item for whatever reason. I don't know what reason there would be, but I'm sure there are some reasons. It would cost you, if it costs you $80 to tokenize a $20 item, it doesn't make any sense, right? You can't do that. Why would you do that? It's going to cost you more than the value of the item itself. And the point that he's trying to make is now you can actually tokenize that item for $1, $20 item you can tokenize for $1, and you're good to go. So Hedera allows you to tokenize, in essence, more assets than you could probably tokenize on another platform like Ethereum. That's kind of the point that he was making. Guys, go check out GoMint. I'm excited to see what they do in the coming months and the coming years. I'm excited to see how the platform develops. And let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. All right, guys, this is the next topic of interest. Again, we're going back to Eftpos, and this talks a little bit about a new use case that they recently announced. We focused on microtransactions in the first video that I showed you guys at the start of this video, but that's not all that they have planned, and they have a lot planned. Let's go ahead and take a look here. So Eftpos released its plans to use distributed ledger technology to power smart cities and self-driving vehicles during the Australian Blockchain Week conference. Very interesting here. So we're going to be looking at smart cities. We're going to be looking at autonomous vehicles and things that we haven't even thought about yet. All of this needs new infrastructure, and Eftpos needs to be informed by that. This was said by Robert Allen, the gentleman that we saw in the initial video. And so he's basically talking about looking at other use cases aside from micropayments. And this was their official, I guess, announcement, or maybe unofficial announcement, I should say, about delving into those types of technologies. So Eftpos Australia first announced a proof of concept of an Australian stablecoin. This is another little tidbit here, using Hedera's Hashgraph in July 2020. Again, this was the micropayment-focused idea, proof of concept that they went ahead and used. After doing that trial, he said, Alan said that Hedera is the only next-generation network that will support those kinds of use cases, which is the micropayments. So we wanted to test it, and it has operated beautifully. Now, because we've got all this digital strategy, we are in a position where we can start looking at ways that problems can be solved in a way which is maybe non-traditional and more distributed. Again, he's talking about those types of micropayment transactions between automobiles that I mentioned in the video. That's it for this topic, guys. Just very, very interesting, kind of like a teaser about what these guys have in store. Autonomous vehicles and smart cities through Hedera. Let's move on to the next topic of interest. All right, guys. So the next topic of interest, I want to draw your attention to this tweet that was retweeted by Hedera Hashgraph. And in this tweet, it says, "Sports Icon is a clean NFT issuance platform. marketplace with auction capacity with unlockable content to experience interaction with iconic sports people. Built on Hedera, Flow blockchain using tools from Trust Venture and Unibar. Now, this was tweeted by Matthew Smithies. And if I go ahead and click on his profile, you'll see that he is the founder of Sports Icon, which is the use case that he's talking about. He is the CTO of Dovu official, Dovu, which is something that we talked about in the last video on Hedera. And he's just basically said that he will be building this platform called Sports Icon, which I'm going to follow right now, on Hedera that allows you to connect with your sporting heroes. Let's take a deeper look into what Sports Icon actually is. All right, guys. So this is an article that was actually published yesterday on Sports Icon. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. So Sports Icon, a new sports-focused NFT platform, today announced a new round of funding from an all-star group of investors, including rap legend, former NBA champion, the CEO of Dapper Labs, who are the creators of NBA Top Shot, Andrew Mazzanto of Reserve Protocol and Hedera Hashgraph, and Chad Hurley, the founder and former CEO of YouTube. So these are all guys that have invested in Sports Icon, this new project that's being built on Hedera. Sports Icon will be working with a host of athletes to offer 15 to 20 NFTs, each a chapter in a story centered around iconic moments from their lives and careers. In addition to collectible NFTs, the company will also work with these superstar athletes to produce immersive 2-hour masterclasses, giving fans access to their mental and physical training methods, techniques, and best practices. So not only is this a digital NFT platform, but there are other aspects that'll go along with these NFTs that'll be offered on this platform. The coming decade will be remembered as the age of digitization, and as is often the case with technological innovations, it will be led by the sports industry. NFTs provide the most passionate fans to own a unique piece of sporting history in a manner previously unavailable. The company is currently developing NFT agreements with icons past and present from across various sports, including soccer, tennis, MMA, basketball, and baseball. Sports Icon is allowing athletes to directly connect with fans in new and engaging ways and is poised to be at the epicenter of a new area of sports memorabilia. Guys, I think this is going to be pretty big. When I saw NBA Top Shot release and what they were doing, immediately I thought, wow, this is a brilliant idea. I think it's going to be incredibly successful. What Sports Icon is doing is they're kind of taking that to another level where they're going to offer these NFTs from icons, from various sports, not just basketball, but soccer, tennis, MMA, basketball, and baseball. So they're kind of opening this up to all the sporting industries that there are, and they're also including not just digital things, but they're also including maybe physical items as well. I read another article, physical items. Maybe you purchase an NFT from a NBA player who's on the platform, and maybe you get box tickets to the next game, or maybe you get front row seats to the next game. So this is not just a digital NFT offering. It's going to offer other perks that fans, I'm sure, will really enjoy. Kind of reminds me a little bit about Galaxy, the dApp that I covered in my last video that focuses on allowing fans to interact with these icons, on another level. Now, of course, Sports Icon is focused exclusively on sports, and Galaxy is focused on creators from every industry, but there are some parallels, and I think this is very interesting, and I think it's going to be quite successful. So very much looking forward to seeing how this project develops. Again, it's very recently announced, and this funding round was announced yesterday, so a very, very new project, but I'm very interested in seeing how this develops over the coming months. And of course, any new developments will be on top of it, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic of interest here. All right, guys, so the first thing that I want to talk about is that Hedera Mainnet has finally hit 1 billion transactions. This was on April 13th. This is a very, very exciting time. It took the Hedera Mainnet 1 year, 6 months, and 28 days to reach 1 billion transactions, all right? To give you guys an idea of how fast that was and how quickly this has grown, the original decentralized network, which is Bitcoin, of course, is approaching 700 million transactions. It hasn't quite hit 1 billion yet. Hedera has now surpassed 1 billion, and it took 1 year and 6 months to do that. Ethereum also recently surpassed 1 billion transactions this year as well, and Hedera actually surpassed Ethereum in transactions quite recently as well. Here's a chart that kind of depicts how long it took to hit 1 billion transactions, and we can see that Hedera Mainnet launch was in 2019, and it surpassed Ethereum just earlier this year after crossing 1 billion transactions as well. So that was just a very exciting little tidbit that I want to share with you guys. It kind of shows proof of how quickly and how fast Hedera is growing, and I'm excited to see where we are a year or 2 years from now. I think that this is just the beginning of this growth, and I think it's going to increase exponentially with the amount of use cases that are developing on Hedera Hashgraph. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next topic, guys. All right, guys, the next topic, super exciting. A new governing council member has officially been announced. This was again April 13th, about 10 days ago. This new governing council member is called Shinhan Bank, which is the leading bank in South Korea, and this bank has now joined the Hedera Governing Council. In January of this year, Shinhan invested in Korea Digital Asset Custody, an industry consortium of businesses that provide digital asset custody service. In March, Shinhan completed a demonstration platform for central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, together with LG CNS, another Hedera Governing Council member, guys. We talked about this in the last video. We talked about the idea of actually, this is in the last video, was a partner, the last Governing Council member, which was the largest bank in Africa that had become a Governing Council member that was announced. They were actually trialing CBDCs in Africa. In this case, Shinhan Bank, we've just found out, completed a demonstration platform for CBDCs together with LG. So this is another aspect of CBDCs. The last one we talked about was CBDCs in Africa. In this case, we're talking about CBDCs in potentially Korea. So it's super exciting news. We're hearing the mention of CBDCs now more and more on Hedera, and we all know how big this is. So very exciting to see that we're hearing more about that from their newest Governing Council member. Since 2017, Shinhan has built various services, including policy loan, pension fund, and interest rate swap deals on the Hyperledger Fabric private blockchain. Now, as many fintech services begin to operate on public DLTs, Shinhan hopes its innovation in banking services can be continued and accelerated by building more services on the Hedera public distributed ledger. So we know that Shinhan Bank has been working with private blockchains as early as 2017, and just now in 2021, they're starting to open up to creating more projects on public blockchains such as Hedera. So this is exciting to see, guys. It tells me that Shinhan Bank, while they are a Governing Council member, they've been working with this technology since 2017. They have a lot of years of experience under their belt building projects on these types of technologies, and now they're bringing that development to Hedera Hashgraph. So super exciting to see that. Right here, this gives you an idea of how big this bank is. Shinhan Bank is a leading commercial bank in South Korea with $471.5 trillion in assets, and I'm guessing this is the Korean currency. Let's take a look at what that translates to in US dollars to kind of get an idea of how big these guys are. So 475 trillion KRW to USD. Let's see what that translates to in US dollars. $425 billion dollars. That's a lot. Okay, took me a second there. That translates to $425 billion dollars in assets that Shinhan Bank controls, right? $425 billion in assets. And again, they have 20 million customers with 1,032 branches, including 156 global branches in 20 countries. That kind of gives you guys an idea of the scale of Shinhan Bank. Massive organization. Now one of the newest governing members on the Hedera Hashgraph Council. Let's go ahead, guys, and move on to the next topic here. All right, guys, the next topic, as we do in every one of my videos, we're going to take a look at the development of the transaction volume on Hedera over the last month or so. And the last video that I made, which was made last month, which was in March, or it was actually made early April, we had a record number of transactions in March, dwarfing prior months. We've been growing at an incredibly rapid rate. April has about a week left, and we've hit levels levels that we saw in January, not quite there yet. I think we'll probably surpass levels in January. We may not make it to the levels that we saw in February or in March. But guys, I'm not concerned about the drop in transaction volume. There was an interview that was done, and the co-founder of Hedera Hashgraph basically said that, we're aware of a lot of the companies that are building on Hedera, and at the same time, we're not aware of a lot of the companies that are building on Hedera because it's an open platform, and I can start building a use case on Hedera, and I don't need to go and ask permission to do so. I can just start building it. So what basically what he's trying to say is that there's a lot of platforms that are building transactions or building applications, on the network, and so they are not aware or don't necessarily know who's responsible for all of these transactions. Of course, they do know some of the biggest companies and biggest dApps that are responsible for these transactions, but they don't know every single one because, again, it's a public network that anyone can build on, and so they're not aware of everyone that's building on it. And so this drop in transactional volume is not something that they can necessarily pinpoint. But the bottom line, in my opinion, is that we're still putting in a massive amount of transactions. As we talked about the last video on Hedera, the amount of transactions going through Hedera Hashgraph, on a day-to-day basis is bigger than the top 10 cryptos by market cap combined. So I'm not concerned about this drop in transaction volume, but it is something notable here. We're going to take a look at this transaction volume in every video, kind of keep up with it. So I just want to draw your attention to that, guys. Let's go ahead and move on, guys, to the next topic, which is going to be the topic that many of you, I'm sure, have been waiting for, the technical analysis. Let's go ahead and take a look at the charts. All right, guys, so this is the chart. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen my charts on Twitter, but this is an updated chart. Now, we were consolidating here after a 400% move to the upside. This, in my opinion, is reaccumulation. I was not expecting such a drastic drop. We hit actually 18 to 19 cents here in the recent days, and that's not something that I would have seen coming. However, Bitcoin did take a pretty big dive, and that's kind of what dragged the entire market down. Whenever Bitcoin drops that violently, I think it went from 65,000. I think it hit a low of 50,000, or even might have gone into the 40Ks. But whenever Bitcoin takes a major dive, there's typically no coin that's going to be immune. So HBAR obviously wasn't immune as well. This is a level that I've been saying it's a great place to buy for weeks now. And you can see that we tapped it once, we tapped it twice, and we tapped it a third time. The more that any of these demand levels get tapped, the weaker they get. The idea behind that being that if there's a set number of buyers here, let's say 1,000 buyers in this area of demand waiting to buy, on the first tap, maybe 300 get to buy. On the second tap, maybe 300 more get to buy. On the third tap, maybe the last 300 get to buy. And now these 1,000 buyers that were waiting to buy the dip have bought the dip, and maybe there's no more demand left in this region because anyone who wanted to buy, those 1,000 buyers that wanted to buy at 25 cents, price has now absorbed all their demand, and then that's how we see a breakdown. The next area of interest being the 18 to 20 cent region. We saw price wick into that region yesterday or the day before, and you can see that again buyers stepped in at this region, which is the next area of interest. Price spiked back up and ended up closing back inside our demand zone, which is a bullish sign. Now this could be the bottom. It depends, in my opinion, on whether Bitcoin's done dropping as well, but before we can say that this is the bottom of this correction, we do need to see some key levels reclaimed. I want to see initially this 30-cent level reclaimed. If we can do that, then there's a good chance that the bottom is in. If we can reclaim 34 to 35 cents, that's confirmation, in my opinion, that the bottom is in. Of course, nothing is ever guaranteed in this market, but I can say with a high level of confidence that if we can reclaim the 34 to 35 cent region, we're probably working on our next major leg to the upside, which I do think is going to take us past the dollar. So again, this is what I'm looking for, guys. We're not out of the woods yet. This is a very, very promising sign. A big drop below our last swing low. We cleared it. We hit the next level of demand. We spiked back up and closed above. And now we're holding above that level. Again, now I want to see a reclaim of the 30-cent level. And then ultimately, I want to see a reclaim of this 34 to 35 cent level to consider that the bottom for this drop is in. Again, it's going to make a difference on what Bitcoin does here. If Bitcoin continues to bleed, then I do think we'll see lower on HBAR here. But I really think that there's a decent chance the bottom is in. I'm just waiting for some more confirmation. I am buying all that I can at these levels. There's no reason not to. I think this is an incredible discount. You're getting to buy HBAR at a price that's about 50 cents off of the all-time high. And guys, I want to kind of remind you guys that these types of dips on alts, it's nothing that is going to be out of the ordinary. We're going to see these in the market a lot. We saw Bitcoin drop 20 to 40% 7 times in 2017. And we know that altcoins by their very nature are more volatile than Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin can drop 40% and still be in a bull market, which it absolutely is, then alts can easily drop 50% or more and still be in a bull market. This does not mean that Hedera is now in a bear market. It baffles my mind when people say that when they see a correction of this nature. We've seen this plenty of times. It's just the nature of crypto, and these are incredibly great opportunities to buy the dip. That's really all it is, in my opinion. Let's take a look at the Bitcoin pairing. That gives us a little bit more insight as well. All right, guys, so here is the Bitcoin pairing on Hedera, and there's 2 key levels that I'd marked off. I tweeted earlier that if this daily demand level is lost, we have this major historical support below that should catch our fall. And if I zoom out, you can see where this support level comes from. A very key level that we broke down from way back in November, back when Hedera was trading at 3 pennies. Obviously, it's much higher now, but we lost that level, then we erupted back above it. This is when HBAR hit 8 cents against the dollar. We came back and tested this level multiple times, consolidated above it, then broke down. And this is when we hit, I think, the March crash on Bitcoin, when Hedera had hit 3 cents after hitting 8 cents. And then we saw this massive move to the upside that took Hedera to 40 cents at the peak. And now we've seen a retracement back down to this major area of support. Now, again, I mentioned that I think the bottom may be in. Daily demand is holding, as we can see here. If I go to the daily chart, we can see that this daily demand level in the BTC pairing is held, okay? And we did wick below it, and we just pushed into this major historical support. And again, I'm not surprised by seeing such a bullish reaction. I think that buyers are waiting at these regions. There is another chart that looks just like this, guys, and that looks very, very similar. And I want to show that chart to you guys. I tweeted about it on Twitter, but let's go ahead and take a look at what I'm talking about. All right, guys, I tweeted this out 22 hours ago. Does this look familiar? A drop from all-time high into a sideways consolidation. I'm talking about a drop from all-time high on Hedera in the sideways consolidation for months, a breakdown, a reclaim, a retest. Do you remember what came next? And if you wonder what I'm talking about Bitcoin back in March of 2020, all right? And this is the chart that I'm referring to. Bitcoin from its all-time high in 2017, we broke down, had months of consolidation. We broke down from that consolidation, we reclaimed that level, we retested that level, and then after that, this was Bitcoin at 6,000, you know where we went. We went to 60,000 after that. So in other words, the point that I'm trying to make with this post is that this breakdown and reclaim and retest is healthy, it's natural, it's also probably the best opportunity you're going to get to buy HBAR before we cross the dollar and go far, far higher than that. This is something, a textbook breakout and retest pattern when it comes to charts, guys. There is no reason to be panicking about HBAR price dropping here. You should not be selling on this dip. You should be buying, if anything, not financial advice. Do whatever you guys want. But I'm telling you from my experience and my perspective, this is nothing more than a very bullish retest of a very key area of support that I do expect to hold. We may get wicks below this level, but ultimately it's just a buy the dip opportunity. Once we get into price discovery mode on BTC pairing, things are going to get crazy, okay? Don't forget that when we got above 8 cents on HBAR, and I've been talking about this for a while, we talked about this in my first HBAR video 2 months ago. I said when HBAR breaks 8 cents, things are going to go crazy. Soon after we broke 8 cents, we consolidated above that level for a little bit, and we shot up to 40 cents, moving up 5x. Now, when HBAR breaks that same all-time high on the Bitcoin pairing, that means there's even less resistance to the upside, and this is why I think that HBAR is going to make a massive, massive move in the coming weeks and months. So take advantage of this while you guys can. I don't know how long it's going to last. Guys, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys like the format of this video, a shorter video after a couple of weeks, and if you prefer this as opposed to the longer videos that I normally make, please let me know down in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe to this video, guys. As always, your support is what keeps me making these videos. So if you enjoyed it, please don't be afraid to show it. That's it for this video update, guys. I will catch you guys in the next one. All right, thanks.